Hello students, welcome back to our channel. In our previous lecture we are discussing about the concepts of weed control. Today we are going to cover the principles of weed control. Okay, so before before suggesting any weed control method, what we need to do, we need to study about the weed flora present in that particular farm. Okay, then only we can effectively control the weeds. Suppose you are going to doctor for any medication, so what he will do, he will ask you certain questions, certain specific question: what you are eating, how is your lifestyle, from how many days you are feeling weaker, or you are affected by the fever, right? So after studying you, after analyzing your symptoms, then only a doctor can prescribe you medicine. So whenever we are trying to control the weeds in our crop field or in any farmer's crop field, so we need to diagnose the weed flora. We need to diagnose the weed flora or the weed problem, whatever the infestation is. Then only we can suggest different herbicide or different weed control method. Principles of weed control include thorough understanding of the ontogeny or life cycle of the weed. Ontogeny means life cycle of weed. What type of weed is that? Means if it is annual, biennial, perennial, what type of weed is that? Then weed characteristics. What is the physiological and morphological characteristics of weed? Then mode of reproduction, whether it is sexually reproducing or asexually reproduction. Then critical period of crop weed competition. So what is the critical period of crop weed competition? When to go for weeding? That means at a shortest lifespan, at the shortest span between the life cycle of the crop, when the crop weed is damaging the crop more, so that if we are controlling the weeds at that particular time, then we can effectively or economically we can control that weed. Then what is the soil condition? It also affects our management aspect, because if there is clay soil, then we need to apply more herbicide, because clay soil will bind more herbicide in its because of its higher surface area. It will bind more herbicide, and more herbicide will not be available for the crop for the weed control, right? Then if there is more organic matter in the soil, then it has also more reaction side, so it will bind that herbicide. So we need to apply more dose of herbicide. Then habitat of the weed, habitat and location of the weed. Suppose it is desert land, or it is aquatic land, or submerged or marginal condition. So accordingly weed management will differ. Then what type of farming practice the farmer is taking. Suppose they are taking monocropping or multiple cropping. Again, based on that also weed management will differ. Then whole farm or community approach. The approach should be whole farm approach, not for the single crop approach. Then it should be system approach. Then what type of climate and season in that particular locality. Then aspect of chemical weed control. There are different aspects of chemical weed control. Then weed prevention measures should be taken. Then socio-economic condition of the farmer. If the farmer is poor, then you must suggest some economic aspect of weed control. If the farmer is rich, then you can suggest for manual weeding and all the different modern techniques, modern tools they can use. Okay. So these are certain principles of weed control we need to follow while suggesting different weed control methods. So these are the basically, after thorough understanding of all the aspects, efficient weed management can be possible. Before understanding the weed flora, before understanding the characteristics, before understanding the situation of that locality, of that weed problem, we cannot suggest the weed control method effectively, or that weed control method will not be effective. Then let's discuss one by one why we should study ontogeny or life cycle of the weed. Based on ontogeny or life cycle weed, how weeds are classified, we have already discussed in our classification class. So they are basically classified as annual, biennial and perennial. What are the annual weeds? Annual weeds means they complete their life cycle, that means from sowing to harvesting or the maturity within one season or 1 year maximum, right? So they basically grow with crop, because crops are also seasonal. So these annual weeds, they also basically grow with crop. So we need to follow their either through manual method or through selective herbicide we can apply, right? And they must be controlled before flowering, because the critical thing is that most of the annual weeds, they propagate through seed. Okay, they produce huge number of seeds, like 1 lakh seeds or more than that in one plant. So we need to control them before flowering so that the seeds cannot be formed and the seeds dissemination will be, we can check the seed dissemination. Then biennial weed, it must be controlled during first season because the first season of biennial weed, that is vegetative cycle going on in that period, and the second season the flowering as well as the seed setting. So we need to control that in the first season itself, right? Then perennial weeds, they are mostly propagated through vegetative structure, so we need to apply the selective or systemic herbicide. Okay, selective rather than systemic herbicide, not contact herbicide. They cannot kill that system because they mostly propagate through root, rhizome, then the stolon, the vegetative part, right? So we need to control that through systemic herbicide or deep tillage. If we are doing deep tillage and we are exposing that the vegetative part below the soil in the hot summer, then that can also control that perennial weeds. Then weed characteristics. What are the weed characteristics and growth behavior of the weed? So based on that also weed management will differ. So that is another principle of the weed management. Before recommending any weed control method, we need to invent the weeds first. What type of weed is prevalent, or what is the characteristics of weed? Suppose this is a narrow leaf weed or broad leaf weed. Whether this is more what is the propagation method? Whether it is propagated through any different self-propagated or different agents are needed for this propagation. So after weed inventory, it is easier to recommend certain practice or weed control methods. Then mode of reproduction and seed dispersal. So for efficient weed control, understanding the mode of reproduction and seed dispersal ability, adaptation and mode of seed dispersal or dormancy is important. If the seeds are dormant in the first year, or if it is non-dormant, so accordingly, if it is dormant, then we can use different dormancy inhibitors so that it will germinate and we can easily control that weed. Okay, like that. Then critical period of crop weed competition, it varies with crop duration and season. So if we know the critical period, what is the critical period of crop weed competition, so we can effectively control weeds at particular crop. Then soil characteristics and condition. Suppose the soil is marshy or low land situation, then weed control is difficult. Here chemical method we can suggest. Then if there is high organic matter, as I was discussing, if it is the soil contains high organic matter, then we should go for higher dose because the organic matter it has more reaction site, so it will absorb the herbicide and it will not available for the weed to control it, right? So higher dose is recommended if the soil is clay type or organic matter is higher. Then habitat and location. So if there is non-crop area, suppose pond area or irrigation channel, there we can go for the non-selective herbicide application. In crop field, we must apply the selective herbicide. Then while controlling the aquatic weeds, we must take care of the aquatic animals also, because some herbicides, they are toxic to aquatic animal. So we need to take care of these things. Then cropping system and practices. The chemical weed control is different in mixed cropping and intercropping than the pure crop or sole crop, because some herbicides, they are having the residual effect. Because so what happens when we apply that herbicide at a particular crop, if it is also selective to that crop, that means if it is not affecting that particular crop and escaping that particular crop and only affecting the weeds, so if it has certain residual effect for longer period, then it may retain in the soil as active form and it will affect the next crop. So if we need to study what crop we are taking, and again this is about the multiple cropping. Then if we are going for intercropping, so it may be selective for one crop and it may not be selective for other crops. So we need to take care of that, what herbicide we are taking and what situation, at what cropping practice or cropping situation we are taking that herbicide, if it will suit for all those component crops. So it is also needed to be take care of. Then whole farm or community approach we should take care of. Like before planning for weed control strategy, whole farm or community approach, like suppose field bound is there, there are roads, nearby crop field, nearby wasteland, whatever is there, whatever is associated with our crop field, nearby location, there also we should take the weed control measures effectively, because from that dissemination will be happening. So we need to clear all the localities, like from our field, right? So to effectively grow crop or to effectively control the weeds. Then system approach or integrated weed management approach, that is always recommended, because if we are doing it integratedly, then we can reduce our hazards, and we can effectively control the weeds, as well as we are maintaining the biodiversity, and it is the long term effect. It has the long term effect. Then climate, season and weather. What type of climate is prevalent in that locality wherever we are suggesting the weed control measure. If it is if the rainfall or precipitation is high, accordingly we should plan our weed control method. If there is temperate or if the temperature is very low, then there is weed control measure will be different, like that. Then aspect of chemical weed control, if adopted, what type of chemical we should take, like selective herbicide we are taking or non-selective herbicide we are taking. Then dose and time of herbicide application, that is also important. If we are going for pre-plant incorporation or pre-emergence or post-emergence herbicide application, or what is the dose, or what is the selectivity of the herbicide, accordingly what is the selectivity index, then window of herbicide application, then duration of control of the weed, then type of sprayer we are taking, then nozzle, calibration, volume and wind speed. These things which we must take care of. Then assessment of weed problem and benefit cost analysis. Without benefit cost analysis, farmers cannot be recommended for practicing different technique, because in farming or in any process, we always take the benefit cost analysis. Okay, if there is no benefit, then we should not recommend any practice, right? What is benefit? That means what is the cost involved and what is the output we are getting. So output minus the cost incurred in that process, that is the benefit. So if we are studying the proper economic analysis, then we can suggest that okay, this you should go for. Okay, if there is no benefit, then we should not recommend that to the farmer, right? So assessment of weed problem through benefit cost analysis, that is also important. Then socioeconomic condition of the farmer. If it is the farmer is poor, then we should not recommend the farmers to rigorously control the weed. We can suggest that okay, you should use the threshold limit level, and you should always do the weeding at the critical period. Then we can recommend them low cost weeding techniques, right? Then follow preventive measures. So even if we are controlling the weeds, then also we should take care of the preventive measures, right? Then in the next class we'll cover, so in this particular class we have covered the principles of weed control. In the next class we will cover the methods of weed control. Okay, methods of weed